Shalom to the elect of Israel, to the whole flock of Israel, you Hebrew Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, West Indians, and Haitians. Got to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai. The Most High, the Heavenly Father. His Hebrew name is Yahweh, not Yahweh, not Jehovah, not God, not Elohim, not Most High, not Lord, not Yah, not Jah, not Ahaya, not Allah, not Abba, not Yahuwah. It's Yahweh. And his only begotten son name in the Hebrew is Yahweh Shai. Not Yahshua, not Yeshua, not Jesus Christos, not Jesus Christ, not Serapis Christos, not Yeshaya, not Yehoshua, not Yahusha. It's Yahweh Shai. So got to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rekah, Korash. Double honors to the apostles and the bishop and elders of great millstone who rule well, who teach well, who are the apostles and elders of all the Israel, whether accepted or not. And the sincere salutation to all the Akim, pushing his truth and believing his truth throughout the four winds of the earth, the entire world, shedding light to the hopeful elect. Shalom to the Akbar who are listening learning. You, if your sisters who are listening learning, coming at you another lesson of truth, facts, faith, and edification. Another day edification, Lord willing to be edifying. I'm Isaiah from GMS Orlando Camp. So I will title this lesson, The Keepers of the House Are Now Trembling. And they've been trembling. And the keepers of the house are those of some kind of importance in the so-called white man's rulership in America. Like Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, the original hot boy BG. You got these guys like Richard Wolff, which is an economist. Peter Schiff, which is an economist. What's this guy name? Ron Paul. These are economists. Chris Hedges. These would be considered kind of like these, as it's tell you in Ecclesiastes 12, the keepers of the house shall tremble. It said they that look out of the windows shall be darkened. So Lord wants to be able to find. Couple clips I got to play. Check this out. Maybe some infomercials, so bear with me. Salakia. Turn this volume down a little bit.
Talk to you a little bit about the story in the New York Times yesterday. The First Amendment is out of control. Tomorrow is Independence Day, and we should all review what freedom of speech is really meant for and what it is. Now, it was written by a guy named Wu. He's a law professor at Columbia, and he writes about tech and everything else. And he says, First Amendment was a tool that helped the underdog, but sometime in this century, the judiciary lost the plot. Judges have transmuted a constitutional provision meant to protect the unpopular opinion into an all-purpose tool of legislative nullification that now mostly protects corporate interests. So he's making the case that we've turned it upside down, and I have to tell you, he makes a persuasive case here.
You heard what he said? That we turned it upside down. That's what the scriptures say, right? Real quick, precept. This is Isaiah. See, these guys can mention these things, but they don't understand what's going on. Isaiah 29:16. This is what he just said. It reads, Surely your turning of things upside down shall be esteemed as the potter's clay. Shall the work say of him that made it, he made me not? Or shall the thing framed say of him that framed it, he have none understanding? And who turned things upside down? The so-called white man. Is it telling Isaiah 5, right? They call bitter for sweet, sweet for bitter, light for darkness, and darkness for light.
But he is wrong in the end. Now let me just skip to this. He's talking about regulation of the internet. Such regulation is not always perfect, to be sure, but it represents a legitimate tool which democratic governments can stand up to private power. The next phase in this struggle will be presumably concern the regulation of artificial intelligence. I fear the First Amendment will be extended to protect machine speech at considerable human cost. I 100% agree with that. It's something I've been warning about for about 3 decades. In our era, the power of private actors has grown to rival that of nation states. True again. Most powerful are the big tech platforms. True again. Which in their cocoon-like encompassing of humanity has grown to control commerce and speech in ways that would make totalitarian states jealous.
Imprisoned for his beliefs, Bowen Co. fled communist China to freely practice his Christian faith in America. Bowen's running to fix the problems in Tallahassee. Career politicians refuse to fix. Bowen Co. fighting to keep Florida free.
Guys, I made these custom branded products for my
These
business on
infomercials, I
Stickery.com,
tell
and
you.
it was so easy. Whether you're a small business.
Correct. Again, in a democracy, in a republic, the people ought to have the right to react and control such private power as long as it does not trample on the rights of the individual. Again, correct. But thanks to the Supreme Court, the First Amendment has become a barrier to the government's ability to do that. Free speech rights have been hijacked to suppress the sovereignty of humans in favor of the power and companies and machines. Okay, so wait, but no, there's a difference between individuals and the government and regulations and suggestions. You want to regulate, okay, regulate. And let's have that not go through the administrative state. Let's have that go through Congress. Let's have that debate, a serious debate about it. We can do that. And I think the right of the individual is what will win in that if we don't have some closed door, Google writing the bill, but actual debate the way Congress is supposed to work. Then I think free speech will win because it's a strong argument for the people. But what the Supreme Court was talking about was, well, now, wait a minute, I think the government, maybe we send it down to the lower court and have them re-examine this, because should the government be able to just say, hey, you need to silence these people? No, the government should never have that power. Ever, ever, ever. Freedom of speech is the cornerstone, is why it is the First Amendment. Freedom of speech, freedom of press. The way that the people can stand up against the government. They can stand up against the government. They can question our government. They can demand answers from our government. They have a press that should be completely separate from the government to stand guard against the government. Remember, this whole document was made to stop a government from becoming tyrannical. So if you're afraid of, Trump or Biden becoming a tyrant, your answer, the only answer should be return to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. The freedom of speech thing is so important. Again, it was the first. But what it means is you can speak your mind without fear of censorship or persecution. Now, that doesn't make you popular, but it does mean that the government and those powerful institutions can do nothing against you to stop you. Would you like it if a church all of a sudden was in charge and said, you can't say these things? I mean, how many people on the left believe in burning the flag? You have a right to do that. Okay, so why did the kid, where was it, in Oregon? The kid that, burned rubber on the pride flag that was painted on the road, he was just charged with a felony. A felony. What is that other than a religion? Or a government saying, this is what we stand for, and you will not tarnish it. Excuse me? I don't want that happening through a church. I don't want that happening through the government. I would like people to self-regulate, but things like peeling out on the pride flag, that happens sometimes not because of homophobia. Sometimes it is homophobia. Other times it is just, you know what? I'm a rebel. You are telling me and jamming this down my throat. No. and it's their only way for freedom of speech. That's the case that is made for burning the flag. Why is it different on the pride flag? See, we have if we didn't have freedom of speech, we wouldn't understand anything. Because the things that were said at some point or another that have made progress and pushed us into new areas have always seemed crazy or dangerous. But they move us forward. Well, I'm not talking about speech that moves us forward, makes progress. I mean the speech that's dangerous. Oh, really? Because that's what every authoritarian and autocratic and theocratic dictator has always said. The problem is, who's in charge of judging what's dangerous and not? The church? The government? Academia? Some other group or organization that would have the power to silence people?
See? You heard what he said? Some other group that have the power to silence people? See, these is insiders. They ain't gonna tell you it's the Rockefellers, the Oppenheimer, the DuPonts, the Rothschilds. They gonna tell you it's the Vanderbilts, the Gettys.
Remember, the only speech that needs protecting is the speech that either the majority doesn't like or power doesn't like. You know, the world was flat for a very long time. And for centuries, that was the accepted view. And challenging it was seen as heresy. And then thinkers like Pythagoras, and later during the Age of Exploration, Ferdinand Magellan and Christopher Columbus dared to propose and demonstrate otherwise. It was their courage to speak out and to explore beyond the known boundaries that led to an understanding of what the earth really was. Now, the power didn't want it. The church didn't want that. Church would prosecute anybody and persecute anybody. You know how they got King Ferdinand to do it? Gold. I'm telling you, there's lots of gold. And you know what happens if he's wrong? He falls off the edge of the earth. Big deal. The idea that the sun revolves around the earth, or is it the earth revolves around the sun, that faced significant resistance. Copernicus and Galileo, pioneers, revolutionary idea, went against the power of the time. In 1633, the Catholic Church, which was the power, tried Galileo during the Inquisition and forced him to recant under threat of torture. Okay, who's deciding what free speech is good, what's progress, what's not? It's easy to see them in reverse. You know what Socrates was killed for? He was killed by the government. He went through a fair trial. You know what he was killed for? Because he was corrupting the youth of Athens. Because he encouraged questioning the established norms and beliefs. Anybody who ever says, you can't question that. Don't question that. You should run from. Socrates was corrupting the youth because he said, question everything.
Bo & Co. says he's a self-made man.
From day one, I came to this country. I never take any.
Hey, and that's what the apostles told us, man. To question everything, man. As I did the lesson Saturday, the Lord gave us talents. The Lord gave us talents to gather all the intel of the so-called white man. All the intel that has been... Okay, let me make sure I work this right. To gather all the intel from the breadcrumbs that the so-called white man left. To gather all the intel that Yahweh Shema left for the remnant to search out the ways of the so-called white man, right? And the brother Dumbwafi brought this precept out. This is Psalms 10 and 15. It reads, break thou the arm of the wicked, and the evil man, seek out his wickedness till thou find none. And that scripture telling you there will always be wickedness of the so-called white man until he's removed. Right? Until he's removed, there will always be wickedness. So the Lord gave the whole select men of Israel, whoever they are, these talents to gather all the intel of the so-called white man, and to tell you in Hebrews 6 and 9 things that accompany salvation, though he does speak. So the Lord gave these men these talents to gather all the intel to bring out the truth to the flock, to break it down and explain it to the flock.
Giordano Bruno, I think it was his name. He's the guy who said there's infinite suns and infinite worlds.
And according to Hebrews 1 and 1, there are infinite worlds, which I'm going to read one of the precepts, Lord willing. But you see, he mentioned Galileo, he mentioned Socrates. All these men, he's giving you the background run on. They was put to death. Why? Because Yahweh Shema Shah put the spirit on to speak against the powers of the earth. Listen.
He was burned at the stake in the Inquisition of 1600. Martin Luther, as well as Martin Luther King. How about Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla? The War of Currents. This was all about power, literally and figuratively, power and money. Here's Thomas Edison, who is using the system to stifle innovation. Edison wants direct current. Because he was losing that battle, because it didn't make sense and it wasn't working, he had to discredit Tesla. And he did it through smear campaigns and propaganda. He had public demonstrations where he got this sick doctor to go and electrocute animals using Tesla's alternating current. He would take down horses, dogs, whatever you had. He'd go to a state fair or a local fair and he'd execute the animals and say, that's what Tesla wants to put in your house. Thank God we weren't afraid of the scare tactics, because that's what we all have in our house today, or at least we will for a while until they come up with something even better that you're not allowed to question. If you can't challenge...
Hey, and what's the saying is? You know, let me pull it up, as a matter of fact. What's the saying is, you know who you can't. Let me look, bear with me. You know who you can't talk about or criticize. So this is from Reuters. And the other, it's a quote. To learn who rules over you, right? To learn who rules over you, find out who you can't criticize. That's it. It says, one more time, to learn who rules over you, hold on, where is it? Bear with Salakia. They giving all these mix. So it say, to learn who rules over you, simply find out who you are not allowed to criticize. Right. And that be the elites, man. That's why he said what he said.
Prevailing wisdom. If you can't propose a new idea, if you can't say, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense, everything stops. Progress depends on the free exchange of ideas. And if you get rid of your opposition, life falls apart. Even the Bible says, opposition in all things. You have to have the metal and the flint. It's when they rub together, when they strike against each other, that's when a spark is made,
You talking about
and
the oil?
that's when things change. This is what we're arguing about right now. It should show you the health of America. I mean, when you have a cold, the doctor might talk to you about, okay, I want you to take this and this and this, and just get some bed rest. But when you have a cold and you have cancer,
See? Hey, the forces of lies, man. Physicians are no value, man. Right? The word doctor means to falsify. A physician is someone who heals. That's what Yahweh Shah said in Matthew 9:12. He came for the sick. We sick, man. So we need a physician. But a doctor, which the word doctor means to falsify. You hear it? You hear it? From an Edomite. This is an Edomite right here, man. And see, as I tied the lesson, the keepers of the house are now trembling. See, you got these guys that's speaking a lot now. They insiders, but they are would it be keepers of the house, man. They trembling. Why? Because they great white hope, the great white America is failing them. The generational wealth and white privilege, the great white hope. You heard him say it. This is Job 13:4. It reads, but ye are forgers of lies. Ye are all physicians of no value. Hold on. Job 15:3. For thy mouth uttereth thine iniquity, and thou choosest the tongue of the crafty. Thy own mouth condemneth thee, and not I. Yet thy own lips testify against thee.
the doctor's not talking about the cold.
Nope.
Okay?
Nope.
He's talking about cancer. Our cancer is so deep, we're down to the fundamentals. We're down to, okay, you can't lose freedom of speech.
This is Ecclesiasticus chapter 10 and 10. Oh man, the physician cut up off a long disease. What's the disease? Cancer. Who's the cancer? The so-called white man, Esau Edom. He's the cancer. Ecclesiastes 10 and 10, the physician cut off a long disease. Who is the physician? Yahweh Shah. And he that is today a king, tomorrow shall die. Can't make it up.
You can't lose your protection against your own civil rights. We're down to the big ones. That's how sick this body is. Meanwhile, they want you to yell and scream about Biden or Trump or whatever. It's the fundamental rights that are first expressed in our Declaration of Independence, something that was signed and agreed upon on July 2nd, finally announced to the American people on July 4th, that we should be concentrating on. I urge you this Independence Day, tomorrow, and I know your family's going to roll their eyes and go, Dad, please. At least mine do all the time. Dad, please. Read the Declaration of Independence.
So let me get this. Hey, because Esau Edom, the so-called white man,
open border policies are putting our family.
has destroyed his house.
We're seeing an influx of illegals that have criminal records. and it's a tragedy. Daniel Webster, he's going to fight for this community because this is the community that he
See
raised his
this?
own kids in. So I know the future means everything to him, and he's going to do what he has to fight illegal immigration. He's doing a dang good job for us here in Central Florida.
Thank Congressman Daniel Webster.
Hey.
Since both
Babylon the Great is through, man. So this is my boy Richard Wolf, right? He's an economist. So let's dig into this. Lord West be edifying. The keepers of the house is trembling. Now this guy here, Richard Wolf, would be one of the keepers of the house because he's an economist. Lord West be edifying.
And this is the worst moment in the war in Ukraine to this point. That means we have the worst confrontation between the United States and Russia in the last 50 years. You'd have to go back to the so-called Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962 between Kennedy and Khrushchev to get anything like this coming up against what would be and is already in Europe being called World War III. We are at the edge of a situation.
As we read all the time, you heard him say it, World War III. This is Revelation chapter 9 and 12. It reads, one woe is past, and behold, there come two woes more hereafter. Revelations 11:14. The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly.
Which you can pick up from my tone, ought to be the number one headline in the world in terms of its impact. Because nobody, and I mean nobody, will be exempt from where this can go.
Recent escalations in Ukraine have put us closer to World War III than ever before, and the mainstream media seems to be ignoring this issue. It's not in the headlines. The markets are ignoring it.
Nope.
Why? How significant is this risk, and what is next? We'll also be talking about other geopolitical hotspots around the world, and finally, domestic issues with our economy here in the U.S. Joining us to discuss these issues is renowned economist Richard Wolf, founder of Democracy at Work, a nonprofit which produces media content challenging capitalism. He is a visiting professor of the New School, professor emeritus of the University of Massachusetts Amherst. He's also taught at Yale, where he got his PhD. He's the founder of Rethinking Marxism Journal, and the New York Times magazine called him America's most prominent Marxist economist in 2013. His latest book is The Sickness is the System, When Capitalism Fails to Save Us from Pandemics or Itself. You can check out previous interviews on my show with Professor Wolf up here or in the links down below, and he also had a debate with Arthur Laffer last year. Check those out. Professor Wolf, it's good to see you again. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, David. Glad to be here.
Now, it's been a significant policy up until now that the U.S. did not condone Ukrainians striking into the Russian heartland. Now, that has reversed recently. The Biden administration on Thursday, May 30th, said that Ukraine can carry out limited strikes inside Russia. British Foreign Secretary David Cameron and French President Emmanuel Macron said earlier that they would remove restrictions on the use of British and French supply weapons to target within Russia's borders. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said on May 24th that the rules of member-provided weapons being restricted from targeting Russia should be lifted. Now, this comes as G7 countries discuss plans to use $300 billion in seized Russian assets to help fund Ukraine's war objectives. So this seems to be an escalation. How dangerous is this escalation, and ultimately, how does this affect the U.S. economy at all?
Okay, so let me begin by telling you that it is definitely an escalation, unless the word has lost all meaning in the English language. I believe that the leaders don't want to use that word because it puts the burden of responsibility on them since they are escalating. Let me explain. From the beginning of this activity, Russia made a decision to invade Ukraine and to conduct a war to quote-unquote liberate certain territories on the border between those two countries where there was was a Russian minority, or maybe even a majority in parts of that area, the Donbass it's called, from the Ukrainians who were treating the Russians, in the view of the Russians, badly. Okay, that was a war between Russia and Ukraine. Now, Russia is a much bigger country than Ukraine, and so the West, which was eager to limit Russia in all kinds of ways, decided to support the Ukrainians by pumping huge amounts of money and huge quantities of weapons to the Ukrainians. Okay, that's a decision not made in Ukraine, not made in Russia, not, as I can put it this way, made by the participants in the war. It is made by an outside group, Europe, much of Europe, and the United States. And that could have led the Russians, it didn't, but it could have led the Russians to say, okay, you have decided to ally with our enemy in this war, and so you become our enemy too, and we are going to target you as well as Ukraine, etc., etc. An agreement was reached. My guess is it was reached explicitly, but it was certainly in place implicitly. The Russians would not respond to the United States and Western Europe's taking a position to aid their enemy, but in return it was understood that the United States and Europe would not permit the weapons they gave Ukraine to be used to attack Russia, because that would change what was going on here. And that was the agreement in place for 2.5 years, roughly from the beginning, February of 2022, to where we are now, just shy of 2.5 years. However, during the 2.5 years, the war went in favor of Russia. Russia has moved its troops steadily westward. It now presides over an enormous part, depending on how you count, about 25% of what was Ukraine is now controlled and administered by Russia. Everywhere in the world, except perhaps in the United States, it is understood that Russia has won or is winning that war, and Ukraine is losing. In fact, if you read some of the statements of the Ukrainian officials, they see it too. Therefore, the real question now presented to the West is, do you go away quietly having lost, or do you escalate and try somehow to hold on? The decision that was made and announced this last week was not to go away quietly. And just a footnote, in Afghanistan, the decision was made to accept the loss and go away quietly. The Taliban took over, marking that loss, and the West withdrew. Iraq is close to the same situation. So no one should believe that the choice of going away quietly when you lose is unavailable. It is available. It has been used by the United States and its allies. But they chose not to do it, to spend untold billions more, either of their own money, which is what they've been using for the last 2.5 years, or to take the money belonging to Russia, frozen in the accounts in the West, and use it to fund a war against Russia. That would make Russia pay for the war against itself.
And Biden mentioned that a couple years ago. He said that America was going after Russia's ill-gotten gains, and they was going after the oligarchies of Russia. So this is what he's mentioning now.
The Russians have said, and here's where things get really important. The Russians have said, this is unacceptable. This is one of those red lines. And they have made it crystal clear. One of two things they will now do, or maybe both of them. Number one, they have announced we will accept nothing short of a 500-kilometer safe zone, a buffer zone, if you like. Here's what that means.
That's fire, because it tell you in Isaiah 13 that they will not. Let me read it. That's fire. He said that. Isaiah 13. Let's read this. Isaiah 13 and 17. Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it. So he said they will accept nothing less but what? Hold on.
Get really important. The Russians have said this is unacceptable. This is one of those red lines.
Yep.
And they have made it crystal clear.
The line is drawn in the sand, man. The line has been drawn in the sand.
One of two things they will now do, or maybe both of them. Number one, they have announced we will accept nothing short of a 500-kilometer safe zone, a buffer zone. If
they ain't taking no gold or silver, man. See how the prophecy is playing out in real time?
But here's what that means. Any missile that is now going to be given apparently to Ukraine, long-range missile, has a limited distance of 500 kilometers. They don't want there to be missiles that are in a position to hit Russia. So if they're going to give it to Ukraine, then Russia says we're going to move the border between our two countries 500 kilometers to the west, which is the end of Ukraine as a nation, because it includes Kiev, which is Ukraine's capital. Would mean the Russians would occupy Kiev. Now, they probably could have done that a while ago. They have that kind of military preponderance, but they haven't done it. Now they would do it.
They playing chess with America.
Or the United States and Western Europe become combatants in this war if they...
Babylon, Russia playing chess with America. And how about Shema Shah playing chess with both of them? Now, I did a lesson the other day. The guy said that Russia is playing poker with America, and America don't hold no cards.
They do this, and therefore Russia will feel entitled to hit back at the United States and Europe if in fact these missiles are sent into Russia, which is the point. That means we have the worst confrontation between the United States and Russia in the last 50 years. You'd have to go back to the so-called Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962 between Kennedy and Khrushchev to get anything like this coming up against what would be, and is already in Europe, being called World War III.
See? Ezekiel 38, man. The Lord putting the hooks into the jaws of the Soviet Union, man. The Medes. It turned them back to their old Cold War mentality. No holds bars. By any means.
Since both the United States and Russia have the greatest stock of nuclear weapons in the world, we are at the edge of a situation which you can pick up from my tone, ought to be the #1 headline in the world in terms of its impact. Because nobody, and I mean nobody, will be exempt from where this can go.
Nope.
And this is the worst moment in the war in Ukraine to this point. And it ups the ante. It qualifies with the term escalation only if you put 3 or 4 exclamation points after the word escalation.
Now, I was listening to the elder from LA. The elder, his channel is GMS Mawata. As a matter of fact, let me look it up. I don't want to say it wrong. And what he said was, hey, it's beautiful, man. Fire. Because the elder said Esau got to clean up the mess that they made, man. So after the Lord destroyed Babylon the Great, Esau, Edom, they're going to go into the bunkers. And then once Yahushua, after the destruction, Yahushua and the elect going to pull these elites out the bunkers. And they're going to be the first fruits of slavery. They got to clean up the mess that they made. So when it's saying in Ezekiel 39, starting at verse 12 through 14, when it said the Israelites shall seek out Yahushua going to seek out continual employment, it's going to be the elites, man. It's going to be the elites that's going to have to clean up the mess that they made, man, which is putting all these dead bodies in graves. The elder, his channel is GMS Mwatazak Bun Gad 2. I was listening to the elder, and he said, the elites going to have to clean up the mess that they made, man, because who controls all of this? The saying is, all wars are banker wars, right? Man, this is so fire. This is so beautiful because as the elder said, the elites gonna have to clean up the mess that they made, man. This is from the elites, man. Yeah. But let's keep listening. I want to get through this some more. This video is like 59 minutes, but I want to play a little bit more of this and I'm gonna get some precepts. This is fire, man. Because the elites got to clean this up, man. The mess that they making in the earth right now, is it tell you in Revelation 16 and 13, right? These three unclean spirits that go forth to the kings of the nations to gather them to the battle. The elites going to have to clean up this mess that they made, man. In chains. In chains, they're going to have to clean up this mess, man.
And therefore, I am very concerned that almost no attention in the West is being paid. Headlines in Europe are much scarier. And the reason for that is that where Russia will likely take out its anger is on them. Because it's easier, it's nearer, and it will make the biggest split. Because the Americans are going to have to confront, do we really want to risk a nuclear war with Russia after it does something awful in Western Europe? And I know the answer that the majority of Americans will give. No way is their answer. They don't know about what's going on in Ukraine, and in general, they don't much care. I'm not defending that. I'm just telling you the way the polls tell us what's going on. And the Europeans do not want to be the sacrificial lambs, neither to their own politicians nor to the United States. The consequence here are spectacular and very, very dangerous. And so the headlines in Europe show it, or only here in the United States, it's a page 6 minor story, which for me is a sign that folks are really not paying attention, because the impact, as I say, will be catastrophic.
You got to have the ice off. And I'm going to stop it right there. That's it. So I'm going to get a couple precepts, because what Esau, the so-called white man, has done, he has consulted shame to his house. Now, let me read this. The only ones that had the ice off to understand what's going on, because you got these economists. Richard Wolff, I love this Edomite. Him and Chris Hedges and Peter Schiff. These are economists. So they would be considered keepers of the house, man. These are the ones that's watching for the atrocities. They are watching the dollar, how the dollar is inflating, deflating, inflating, stagflation, hyperinflation. These are the ones that's watching what's going on. When you watch Richard Wolff, particularly, I love to watch Richard Wolff and Chris Hedges. Chris Hedges tell you that it's all about classism, which is the elites. They have taken generational wealth and white privilege from the common so-called white man. Now this is Ecclesiastes 12 and 3. This is beautiful because I got to get these precepts. Let me read this first. Ecclesiastes 12:3. It reads, in the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves. What's going on right now dealing with the war? Nobody want to sign up for war. So that means the strong men allegedly are bowing themselves. And the grinders cease. Why? Because they are few. The jobs. Retail apocalypse, the jobs are few. And those that look out of the windows be darkened. Who looking out the windows? It's talking about the economists. So when you see videos on Richard Wolff, Peter Schiff, Gerald Celente, Jeremy Babe, Ron Paul, what's this guy named? Jim Rickers. He's another one I love to watch. Jim Rickers, I did a lesson on this last year. He said, you're going to have to take them the micro C help or you ain't going to be able to eat. Jim Rickers said that, man. Listen to this. This is Hebrews chapter 11:20. Listen to this. By faith. Hebrews 11:20. By faith, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come. I titled this lesson, The Keepers of the House Are Now Trembling. Whose house are we living in? Huh? Who? The so-called white man. This is his dominion. This is his hegemony. This is the so-called white man's dominion, kingdom, hegemony, dominance. This is his house. Hebrews 11:20. By faith, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come. What's Esau blessing? Let's read it. Genesis 27:40. And it reads, and by the sword shall thou live. Let's read 39. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above. And by thy sword shall thou live. His military. The so-called white man has the greatest military on the planet Earth. And shall it say, and by thy sword shall thou live, and shall serve thy brother during the time of King David and Solomon. And it shall come to pass, when thou shalt have the dominion, thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. This happened during the time of Solomon. Because the scripture said that Lord Yahweh stirred up Ben-Hadad, the Edomite, against Solomon. That's in 1 Kings 11. So his blessing, it said in Hebrews 11:20, again, by faith Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come. So Esau is living in his what? His house, his dominion, his hegemony, his dominance, his kingdom, right? This is, remember, it said, this is Hebrews 1:1. Listen. God, who at sundry times and in diverse manners spake in time past unto the fathers by the prophets, hath in these last days spoken unto us by his Son, who have appointed heir over all things, by whom also he made the worlds. He made the worlds, right? Yahweh. Guess what, man? If you didn't know, when you read John 3:16, it reads, John 3:16. Now the Lord was talking to Nicodemus in John chapter 3. Who was Nicodemus? He was an Israelite. He was a Jew. So in this whole chapter, it's talking about the Israelites. Listen, John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. What world is this? Because it said in Hebrews 1 and 2 that the Messiah made the worlds with an S. The so-called white man got his own world, right? He was blessed too, as it said in Hebrews 11:20. It said, by faith, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come. Esau has a world too. He's living in it, right? Now it said that the Lord sent his only begotten son for who? The world. What world is this? This is John 17 in verse 9. The Lord said, John 17 and 6, I have manifest thy name unto the men which thou gavest me out of the world. So if the Lord was coming to save the whole planet, why did he say, I have manifest thy name unto the men which thou gavest me out of the world? What men is this? So this means everybody don't got the name of the Lord. Thine they were, and thou gavest them me, and they have kept thy word. Verse 9, I pray for them. This is the Messiah. This is in the red. I pray for them. I pray not for the world, but for they which thou hast given me, for they are thine. So what world the Messiah praying for? He said, I pray for them. I pray not for the world. That's talking about the rest of the nations, the 17 heathen nations, and 2/3 of Israel. Let's get this in Isaiah 45. Isaiah 45 and 17, it reads, but Israel shall be saved. Who? But Israel shall be saved in the Lord with an everlasting salvation. Ye shall not be ashamed nor confounded, world without end. Now it said in Hebrews 1 and 2 that the Messiah made the worlds with an S. The so-called white man has his own world. He's living in it. This is the so-called white man's heaven, and this is the so-called black man's hell. This is the Edomites, the so-called white man's heaven, and this is the Israelites, so-called Negro, Latino, Native Americans, West Indians, and Haitians. This is their hell. The Messiah made the worlds. Go read Hebrews 1 and 2. So the so-called white man got his own world, which he's ruling in right now. Look at this. Listen to this. 2 Ezra 6 and 9. This is fire. For Esau is the end of the world, his world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. Now I read to you Hebrews 11:20. It said, by faith Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come. Genesis 27, 39 and 40. Isaac blessed Esau to live by the sword, to have the fatness of the earth. This is his world right now. There's another world coming that shall be ruled by the Hebrew Israelites. First and foremost, with our Lord and Savior, our big brother, Yahushua. Right? Listen to this. Ephesians. Whose world is this we living in now? The so-called white man's. Ephesians 2 and 1. And you have he quickened. And it say who were dead in trespasses and sins. And I love to make this point because as Yahweh quickened Yahushua, when you read Isaiah 11, starting at verse 1, Yahushua in John 6, he quickened the remnant of Israel, starting with Peter. They was quickened. It tell you in Matthew 3, it said, once Yahushua was baptized, the Messiah, it said, the spirit of Yahweh descended upon him like a dove. That's being quickened. This is what Yahushua did to the remnant men of Israel. Verse 2, Ephesians 2 and 2. Wherein in time past ye walked according to the course of this world. This world. We had to follow the ways of the so-called white man. Right? His education system. What did the Lord say in Deuteronomy 28 and 48? That we shall go to the enemy for the one of all things, food, hunger, and nakedness. It say, and in the one of all things, transportation, housing, work, schooling. That's 7 things we had to go to the so-called white man for. So, Ephesians 2 and 1. And you have he quickened, who the remnant, who were dead in trespasses and sins, where in time past you walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience. Who is the prince of the power of the air? It said according to the course of this world. Because Esau is the end of this world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. Isaac, it said by faith in Hebrews 11:20. Isaac by faith blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come. Colossians chapter 2 and 8, and it reads, "Be well, lest any man spoil you through philosophy." From who? The so-called white man. The Lord said we had to go to them for the one of all things. That's part of the curses on the Hebrew Israelites. Be well, lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the tradition of men, after the what? The rudiments of the world, right? His policies, right? His elements, his essentials, his first principles, his foundations, and not after Mashiach. We had to learn the ways of the so-called white man. So now, the Lord has made their own tongue to fall upon themselves. Why? Because his rulership, his dominance, his hegemony, his kingdom, his dominion is collapsing. As I tell you in Isaiah 14:11, the worm shall cover thee and the worm shall spread over thee. Corrosion, corruption, deteriorating. That's what's happening to the so-called white man's rulership. Let me get this. In Proverbs chapter 11 and 29, and it reads, "He that troubleth his own house," what it said in Ecclesiastes 12, "the keepers of the house shall tremble." Who is the keepers? Richard Wolf. He's a keeper of this house. Chris Hedges, Ron Paul, this Richard Wolf you see on the screen, Chris Hedges, Ron Paul, Peter Schiff, Jim Rickers. These are the keepers of the house. Proverbs 11:29. "He that troubleth his own house shall inherit the wind, and the fool shall be servant to the wise at heart." Who is the fool? The so-called white man. Who is the wise at heart? The remnant, the elect of the Hebrew Israelites. Yeah, he's troubling his own house. This is Habakkuk chapter 2 in verse 9. This is beautiful. "Woe to him that coveteth an evil covetousness to his house, that he may set his nest on high, that he may be delivered from the power of evil." See, they done established, it tell you in James 5:1, they have established all this wealth so they can hide from the Lord, man. The bunkers, the space station, they $1 billion sub yachts. Verse 10, "Thou hast consulted shame to thy house by cutting off many people and has sinned against thy soul." See now, closing precept. This is Psalms 64:7. See, you've been working overtime trying to kill the Israelites through chemtrails and GMO food, contaminated waters, putting guns and drugs, sending out women against us. They've been working overtime to get rid of us. Psalm 64:1. "Hear my voice, O power, in my prayer. Preserve my life from fear of the enemy. Hide me from the secret counsel of the wicked." Who are the secret counsel? It's the elites. The Oppenheimers, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Gettys, the Bilderbergers, the Vanderbilt, the DuPonts, the Gettys. "Hide me from the secret counsel of the wicked, from the insurrection and the workers of iniquity, who whet their tongue like a sword, because they control the laws. My amateur bowers that give me control of the money, I care not who make the laws, where they control the laws, who whet their tongue like a sword." and bend their bows to shoot their arrows, even bitter words. That they may shoot at the secret, that they may shoot in secret at the perfect. Who is the perfect? You so-called Negro, Latino, Native Americans, West Indians, and Haitians. Suddenly they shoot at him and fear not. They encourage themselves in the evil matter. They communal land snares privily. They say, who shall see them? The angels watching you bastards. They search out iniquities. They accomplish a diligent search. Right? They do wickedness. The Tuskegee experiments. They got Operation Garden Plot, Operation Paperclip. They got all these different schemes and scandals. They encourage themselves in the evil matter. They communal land snares privily. They say, who shall see them? They search out iniquities. They accomplish a diligent search. Both the inward thought of every one of them and the heart is deep. They got these codes on the books where they can take the food. They can take your vehicles. They can take everything from you. It say both the inward thought of every one of them and the heart is deep. Since you've been shooting at us for so long, the Lord said in verse 7, but God shall shoot at them with an arrow. Suddenly shall they be wounded. So they shall make their own tongue to fall upon themselves. All that see them shall flee away. And the rest of the nations is fleeing from Babylon the Great. Let me get this closing precept. It said, all that see them shall flee away. Revelation 17 and 16. And the 10 horns. This is NATO and EU. Which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire, which is those intercontinental ballistic missiles. For God hath put in their heart to fulfill his will and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast. How long, Lord? Until the words of God shall be fulfilled. Lord was edifying. Got to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahushua, Bahashim, Rekah, Quadash. Double honors to the apostles and elder bishops and elders of great millstone who rule well, who teach well, who are the apostles and elders of all of Israel, whether accepted or not. In the sincere salutation to all that can pushing this truth and believing this truth, for the four ends of the earth, the entire world, shedding light to the hopeful elect. Shalom to the walk through lesson learning, you feel sister while lesson learning. May Yahweh Shema Shah continue to bless you in your houses. May the blessing of Alexa be upon your houses. Till next time, I say shalom. Hey, the Lord is making the so-called white man bear. These are the keepers of the house that are trembling. Shalom.